For some of the first orders of their business, they obviously started based on GMT time. They obviously started in Asia, cleaning house in Japan. As you know, the G7 is coming up there. Is it the G7 or G20? G7, I think it is.
G7, yeah.
Yeah, is coming up there. And the operatives, so to speak, are the ones that arrive 2 weeks early. And they negotiate all the deals ahead of time. This is the way it's always been. Now, when people talk about the Biden administration, they're talking about a group of operatives. They are not talking about that thing, whatever that is, on TV. Same thing goes for all of the, people in the Senate and the House. And if you're listening to this from another country, in your country as well. So all the deals are pre-negotiated, and then they just get up there, they take pictures, and they talk
perform.
Yeah. They're actors. They are paid actors. Every government in the world are paid actors. I know they would like you to believe that they are running your government, and then you hate them, and you think that they're bad people, and you start yelling at those people too, and yelling at the TV. But you don't need to do that because they're just acting. It's kind of like going to a movie, and then you're like, something happens to the hero in the movie and you're like, no,
Yeah.
In the story, but it's no different here in politics. Although you get upset about policies that have been made, especially over the last couple of years, in different ways they've tried to interfere in our life, they've acted on behalf of someone else. Namely, this is your Order of the Dragon and your Order of the Black Sun. Trying to create policies that they think make sense. So this is why the silent circles moves in the last 24, 48 hours has been critical. So they started where they needed to start the very next day, especially by the time they got into this time zone. They had a worldwide military meeting. Of all the heads of all the militaries, basically explaining to them, hi, it's nice to meet you. This is who we are. We now own you because you owe us money. You can't pay us back. We know you're trying, but you no longer take orders from those people. We have replaced them in the world. And you now will take orders from us. Anybody that steps out of line will see Valhalla. That's, a joke. It's a Nazi joke about Hitler's Valhalla and if you're not white, you're not right Nordic people, the Aryans. So although they weren't happy about it, they did, right now everybody seems to be doing what they're supposed to be doing. You still have some crazy people that think that they're going to get something done, such as the people at the WHO this morning. But you can't there's no pill for stupid. So, well, there is now. We have now created a pill for stupid, as the silent circle.
Yeah. Well, will they take care of people that are stepping out of line, Kim, or is that still our responsibility? Okay, they will.
Yes, they will. They will take care of anybody who steps out of line that in an asset that they now own for the price of $1.
$1, yeah.
$1. Yes.
That's a steal.
Cheap.
That is a good deal.
That's a good deal. I ain't gonna lie. It's like the dollar store, but for everything.
The dollar store isn't even the dollar store anymore, so it's a better deal.
It's like the $1.50 store, isn't it?
$1.25. I know this store very well.
$1.25 store. Guess they're gonna have to change their name. Oh, not quite a dollar.
Not quite a dollar.
A little more than a dollar store. So after that, the next global phone call was with all of the agencies of the world to get them in line on the same program.
Okay.
So you either follow the agenda or you depart. That's basically what they're telling everybody. Rightfully so. And it was a perfect place to start. If I was going to start somewhere, that's where I would start, because then you have the ability to move into politics and to move into media.
Do they say what the plan is? Like, how much information are they giving them? Like, I'm sure they don't say, hey guys, we're part of the restoration plan now. I mean, I'm sure,
No, the one thing I will say, I did there was a pre-meeting, as I had talked about on Monday. The meetings that took place on Monday were internal meetings,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm aware of what they're planning, and I'm not going to put that out right
Right.
now. It's not wise to do so. But I will say it was a pure pleasure to listen to what their plan was, and then an even larger pleasure to see it actually executed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's why. Number one, decisions were made. It was very decisive. There
Mm-hmm.
was no questions about what they were going to do or anything. They had an actual discussion with their colleagues about specific regions and what's going on in the regions. Do you see any problem with going step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in this country or that country? And they said,
Mm-hmm.
no, we don't see that. Or yes, we see that. Don't forget about this person or those people that are also prevalent in this region. They said, oh, we understand. We'll take care of that. And taken care of it was, as opposed
Wow.
to listening to the deep states meetings and the generals go around and round in circles, coming up with fanatical, ridiculous plans like Trump bucks and central bank
Yeah.
digital currency, and thinking they're going to actually hack into the harmonic genesis system. Do we have any way to hack? Can we go to a historical site somewhere and orangutan punch it, and see if we can get something going there, kick it a few times, send people repeatedly to the same place over and over and over again. They even, for their last act before these meetings took place, they had actually pulled out old information that they had gotten from Admiral Byrd. Do you know who Admiral Byrd is?
I could come up with some funny statements, but no.
I know. Admiral Byrd was an admiral who had traveled to Antarctica.
Okay.
And the stories he started to tell were about his journey, his meeting the tall whites, and his journey to the center of the earth.
Oh, I do think I know who this is. This is ringing a bell. Okay.
And his adventures. And the
Yeah.
minute he started to talk about it, they slandered him, called him crazy, and
Right.
eventually he ended up no longer with us. But those stories still leaked out,
Uh-huh.
somewhat. Now they had the original information, and they were going through his handbook of how can we get in? Can we go talk to those people? Can we get help from somewhere?
Oh.
What did you discover in Antarctica? And Antarctica was a large base. There were, and there still are, tall whites there.
Hmm.
That is the truth. So there's probably a lot of truth to what he was trying to say.
Right.
Which they want to immediately classify all this information because God forbid we find out the truth. And for a time there, during the time he would have been there, everybody was compartmentalized. It's just like they did with the humans, as did my predecessor with the others that reside on this
Wow.
planet. A lot of them brought here as refugees and slaves to serve them in some way, shape, or form. The tall whites were no exception. So everybody was stuck in a specific area. It would be kind of like locking up your country's borders. So the tall whites were at the North and South Pole. You had the Saurians, which were predominantly in America. You had different races and different locations around the world, and nobody was to interact with each other because they were told, just like your agency people are and operatives are, that is your enemy. They are the ones that actually destroyed your planet. It wasn't us. Remember the game of deny, 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 reassess, blame that the
Hmm.
agencies and operatives play? Well, I learned it from the biggest player there ever was that invented the game.
Yeah.
So about 2019 was the first time they started to interact with each other, tell stories that they were told, the lies, dispelling the lies, and figuring out none of that really happened. They wouldn't have even, had the capacity. They weren't even in that region. They did look what they did to us, and then they told everybody that it was everybody else's fault but theirs.
Hmm.
The inventor of the age-old agency game, older than you think, thousands and thousands of years old. We are your hero. We are your savior. We have come to save planet Earth. You know, we're saving you humans from
Mm-hmm.
killing yourselves. You know, it's the same thing they told to the others that are here. This is no exception. And then, of course, in their training of operatives and Black Sunites and all these people, they did the same thing to them. They compartmentalize them. They tell you who your enemy is and who your savior is. And then they perpetuate those programs down to the general population. So this was no exception as far as compartmentalization is concerned. But in using this manual, everybody traveled back down to Antarctica a couple of days ago to try and see if they could activate something, get themselves something. You know, most of this stuff is, you know, little knowledge is dangerous. I say that all the time, but it's true. You know, they don't know what they're doing. These are big boy toys, what was left there. You know, if there was anything left, we had taken a lot of it out, but there was still a few things left there. And I don't know if they really cared if they destroyed the entire planet or not, but that's where they were going. You know, and we weren't going to let that happen. So all of those people have departed. Then there was another incident that happened on, I want to say it was Monday afternoon, because it was before they were contacted yesterday. So on Monday afternoon, there was a group of people down the street. Remember, we talked about the meeting down the street, and they brought in the information from Admiral Byrd, and these guys were the ones that were putting out the orders to try a few things that were listed in the manual there. And this new guy came in, and I believe, I want to say he's with the Space Force, was with the Space Force, but it seemed to me he was more of a driving force behind the Space Force we see in the news. Kind of like the general behind the scenes that was responsible for that facility. He rocks up here and he starts saying things like, I'm here to get her. I'm going to just take her out. You know, you people aren't getting this job done, you know, and he starts yelling at everybody. So everybody kind of went quiet until then he started threatening the locals, because the locals said, look, this is our town. We say what happens and who comes and who goes and what happens here. And then he started threatening them, and he was, let's just say, taken to an appropriate location for an expedited departure, which took place. And I don't think these guys just get it. I mean, they're like I said, they're elitist, they're egotistical. They think that they can run the world and run everybody in it, and that's just not the way it works. You know, you don't. I can't explain to you why, you know, people say that, oh, stop the division. You need to work with these people. It's impossible. It's impossible to work with these people. And I expect more departures. I also expect more resignations. So the next thing that the Silent Circle has been doing is they have been calling the entire network of people in governments, in agencies, and in other businesses around the world, and introducing themselves as their new handler, their new boss. You will no longer report to, you know, Rothschild. You will no longer report to the Chinese deep state. You will no longer report to the Iranians. You'll no longer report to these people anymore. So you will work for me. And if they decide not to and complain, you have people like the NSA director who has resigned and no longer has that position, and you will be replaced. This is how
Do you
it's
think
working.
that's why he resigned, Kim? Because he
Yes.
didn't want to play ball?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do. You know, some of these people still have an innate fear of the order itself, but they forget who the boogeymans really are. Boogeymans plural.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely, he would not. So he will be departing that position, and we'll see if he departs the planet. You don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the same thing will happen with DARPA. The same thing will happen, you know, if they don't want to play the game, you know, as it's being played now. The SES is another one. We'll probably see some change ups there. I mean, they're not a public entity. They are. You can find them on Wikipedia, the SES. but you really don't know who's who there, who directs what. It's kind of like a clandestine British operation on U.S. soil. It's pretty much what it is.
Hmm.
Run by the Order of the Blue Dragon. They're here for their Blue Dragonites that work in America, like Hillary Clinton would be one of those. You know, everybody wants to see these arrests of these Walking Dead people, but honestly, it's there's no point.
Because they're not the real person,
Well, they're not
or
the real person, number one. Number
Hmm.
two, in the past, putting them in jail is a blessing.
It's like making them a martyr.
Well, yeah, and then they go out the back door anyway, and then they go get a new
Well,
ID and go live someplace else like Epstein.
right,
So
that's true.
it's no. Now, the way that it is, they'll be stripped of power, defamed in public, slaughtered, basically, and forced to live in the world that they created.
When you say defamed in public, are you talking about the truth coming out? Like
Oh, yeah.
finally, yeah,
Well, unless they play.
unless they play, yeah,
You
okay.
know, the world is not working that way. Next, I know they've been very busy. It's been a little over
I
a day
like
and a
it.
half.
I like it.
I like it
Keep
too.
it
That's what I
coming.
told you. I told you guys they were the GSD. You know,
Yeah.
they get it
Yes.
done. I mean,
Yeah.
they have meetings, they're decisive instead of talking, you know, listening to these deep state generals talk about going around in circles and fanatical fairy tales that will never come true. You know, it's like saying, hey, Sonny, I'm going to send the tooth fairy in to give your kid braces. Just be ready. She'll be there next Tuesday. You know, no.
It's refreshing to hear from people that are using their brains, right? That are actually wanting to get stuff done, have
Mhm.
pride in getting stuff done, you know?
Well, and they are decisive. And when they
Yeah.
make a decision, it's carefully calculated. It is in
Hmm.
reality. It also contains factors like, say, common sense,
Who
patience.
knew that that was such a hard thing to come by? But yes.
I know it is yes, it's very rare. You know, it's rarer
Yeah.
than diamonds on this planet, at least amongst the deep state.
Right. Right.
And they are executing on that plan. So the human network, let's call it the human network or the semi, whatever they think they're splices to some alien race somewhere. So the splice network is now working for them. This would also involve things like the Senate Finance Committee, your respective nation's central bank, and many other things that will come to pass in the next few days. The next thing they went for is all of the in-ground assets that the Rothschilds, Order of the Dragon, and Order of the Black Sun claimed they held the lien on. Now, if you've been watching this for a while, you know that things like the Bureau of Land Management is not a government organization. It was a Rothschild organization, and the assets contained therein were claimed to be owned by the Rothschilds. And due to the transition of power from the United States to China, then the Chinese deep state decided they were going to claim control of all of these assets. That includes in-ground assets in Russia, all of the African continent, all of the Latin American continent as well, Canada, no exception, every single country in the world's in-ground asset base.
Hmm.
And they have deployed people to every country, including the United States. Matter of fact, they are currently not too far from here.
Hmm.
So they are making sure that their people are now the ones that are protecting and in the assets, let's just
Right.
say. The incident at Bundy Ranch was created by the deep state over BLM land as we know it in the news. But in fact, it had to do with the UN substations they were putting there under the Paris Climate Control Treaty. I've said this before. So now the Silent Circle is basically putting in their own substations. Once this is complete, then there will be a discussion that will happen because we actually hold the liens and the derivatives against those assets and therefore control the currencies. That's how it worked. The Federal Reserve was just a front. So once that actually takes place, then there'll be a discussion about supporting the world's currencies with real assets. So when you trade on a country's level, it's actually moving gold on a computer screen, so to speak, from one country to another country, and then you would issue that country's currency. So that's how government trade will work. It's no longer required, once we fix it, to do so in dollars.
Okay.
So the fact that all of these human networks are being taken, which will mean that in a short order, they will control politics. Then,
Wow.
yes. So the estimated time to complete this task at the rate that they're going, based on my analysis, is somewhere around 10 to 12 days.
That's a lot of change in a very short amount of time.
I'm telling you, they're good at what they do.
So, would we expect people in politics to resign? Like these dead people walking around that aren't really the people they say they are. Like, I mean, how do you clean that up?
Operatives, military people, agency people, they think very highly of themselves.
Yeah.
They feel like they are the ones that have run the world and that they will continue to run the world in their mind. Their ego is so big. These generals, and this is not just Americans, this is all over the world. They believe that they have the right. It's their bloodline of Cain. This is part of the reason why I did tell you about the tomb. The bloodline of Cain, and that they are going to run the world and they're entitled to it, and all of this stuff. But politicians are a little bit different. If the fear factor isn't there, that their own dirty little secrets aren't going to come out into public, which they could as well. Remember what will happen to the actors. The actors that do not play the game will be publicly flogged. Remember I said they were going to go after all the media. It'll take probably 30 days for you to start seeing that. That's my guess.
In the media?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They will acquire and use the media as a tool to get people to comply.
Wow.
Little part of the plan. Okay, so fine. But it's also our plan too,
Yeah.
If we were feared as much as they were, we would do the same thing. Right now to the deep state, I'm kind of like a unicorn. They're watching it happen on the key intelligence and military system when there's an operation in progress. They're watching, half of it, they don't even understand what's going on. But I'm still like a unicorn. How could one human work with a system, do all of that damage? We're millions of people. We're the operatives. Remember, I walk on water part it, and was trained to do so by the same people that compartmentalized everybody else in the world. Only tell you half the story. I'm so sick and tired of hearing stories from these guys in the alt media, and you'll know them because they say things like, I was responsible for taking down the economy of Russia. I was responsible for the fall of the USSR. I was responsible for the Vietnam this and that, and they're still talking. You'll know them. You can hear them. You know who I'm talking about. You'll see them constantly, and then you have other people that still believe that they're doing the thing. So, well, the world is a changing place, and the silent circle is going to make sure of it. So based on this timeline and this assessment of somewhere about a week to 2 weeks, based on the current rate that they're moving for the last 24 to 48 hours, there will be a meeting scheduled at which time I will collect my dollar, and then we will fix everything that's broken.
So you think within 2 weeks' time, you're going to get your dollar. So that means they are then controlling everything they need to control.
Yep.
To hand it over.
Yep.
Okay.
And then there'll be for those companies and for governments, but you can't fund a government the way that it is. I've already tried that. All it did was create more problems for us and more delays. and starting the restoration plan. So if my estimate is correct, and possibly the reason why they chose the 15th had to do with the fact it gave them 2 weeks based on an organized plan. Get that? Huh? Who knew that can happen? Because all the other people we've been listening to, between the Chinese deep state and the Rothschilds and the, Iranian sector of the Rothschilds and the, all of this other stuff, the CIA, the operatives, Umbrella Military Corp, and everybody else, I didn't know people had plans that made sense, that were based in reality, that could actually work. And when I started looking at it, I'm like, oh my God, that works. Wow, this is incredible,
Yeah.
So yes, at which time I'll collect my dollar. And I'm guessing they know, like I know, based on proper analytics, that they should be finished completely by this time. So I'm expecting when that dollar comes is when, we can do funding right on the spot. It doesn't take that long. It takes me 20 minutes to make transfers. It's not that hard when there's no interference.
Right.
What does this mean for you? Remember I said the people would not get hurt, and our Creator always has a plan. So before and at the exact moment, literally probably within days of a complete total financial collapse, everything will turn around. We're going to start to see the world work in a whole other way.
Is this kind of the June 1st deadline that we've been talking about with the US government?
Yeah, it's bad. It's really, really, really bad. It's far worse than they're talking about. Signing debt ceilings. I don't even think these politicians know what the gosh darn debt ceiling actually is. For those of you that are watching this and you don't understand the debt ceiling, that relates to the open market account, which the Federal Reserve doesn't have anymore, and liquidity that the Federal Reserve would then access from the alpha system to pay government budgets. And allegedly, the government's debt that they owe currently to the Federal Reserve, at least on ledger, is around 31 trillion or whatever they're talking about. That means that they have issued that amount of treasury notes that are still active and not expired to the Federal Reserve, expecting budget money to continue to come through the Federal Reserve to the government, hence the debt ceiling.
Okay.
So right now, the debt ceiling amount is kind of stuck. So
they can't raise it.
They have no money, more money to lend.
Right. Okay, because they make it sound like they really dumb things down for the general public. They make it sound like, oh, just, McCarthy's like, oh, we'll just raise it. It's not that big of a deal. I guess you just sign on a dotted line, say it's okay. We're just going to raise this. But it's good to know the back end of what actually needs to happen. And it can't happen.
Well, 11 years ago, it was the case. This is why people in the alt media are up in arms over the fiat currency and the endless checkbook. And, if you had the ability to continue to quote unquote write checks, or in this case, nowadays it's swipe your debit card to buy anything you want, and your account just keeps going more negative and negative and negative, and you were negative $31.4 trillion in your checkbook,
right?
There would be consequences.
Oh yeah.
Probably some jail time,
yeah.
but not for this agreement between the Fed and the U.S. government, which hasn't existed technically since 2012.
Is there anything they can do, Kim, to kind of fudge this for media purposes, and so the general public doesn't know what's going on? Like, can they say they raised it last minute just to? I don't even know what that would do besides maybe not make people so worry when they turn on the news.
Well, within the next 30 to 60 days. That will be a faint memory. You're going to turn on UNN is what you're going to turn on. You'll see. That's one asset I do want. So I'll have to pay more
the media
than $1 for that.
Is that what you're talking about? You want the media?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not for myself, but for all the people that work at UNN, not me.
Yeah.
And all the people that will be employed by UNN in the near future.
Right.
So we'll see. war is an ebb and a flow. These people have a no tolerance policy, and I understand that, and they're very good at it. But everything ebbs and flows, and the information I'm giving you is based on an analysis that is happening at this moment. So I'm guessing it'll take between 30 to 60 days based on the current analysis to start turning around that media and using it as a powerful tool for disclosure.
Gosh.
For all of those that do not play.
That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Because things can really start to happen then, because so many people, and I know everyone watching now knows what I'm talking about. It's like you try to talk to someone about something and they'll just come at you full force because it was on CNN or it was on Fox News, and that's their whole world. Even people that say they don't really watch the media, like I talk to some people, I don't pay attention to mainstream media, but they're still getting that information from roundabout sources. It's still the same information.
Of course.
So the ability for us to be able to come in there and actually give real information, that is just huge.
Well, and it's time. We start with the reality of the world that we live in. We're not children anymore. Our governesses, are no longer our governesses, and we're not children and we're not slaves. We are human beings. We are sovereign beings. And, as much as we, let's just say, act appropriately and as such, we're now getting kicked out of the house, guys. It's time. We're all of age now. We're all sovereign. You don't have that interference, to complain about anymore as far as essences and dark things and interference with your thought processes and a lot of things that have happened in the past. You are a free sovereign being now. So, as we move forward, 2 weeks is not a long time. 10 days, 10 to 12 days is what I'm guessing, but I'm going to say 2 weeks. If something changes and alters that time, I will give you that update. I'm talking to you 3 days a week. So, I'm giving you kind of as much information as I can give you about what's happening as I can, so that you stay informed, which is what the news is supposed to do, isn't it?
Yeah, it hasn't. Well, ours has, but most of them haven't, but that's the intent.
Well, that way you can make life choices and life decisions for yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to this dollar. You're
going to frame it, right? You said you bought the frame for it?
Yep. Got it ready.
It'll go in like CARE headquarters someday or something.
Yeah, exactly. Put it on the office wall.
That's right.
When I get an office.
When your office doesn't have to be your bathtub because of interference and everything they're throwing at you.
Yeah. Actually, today's been pretty good. I mean, as they make their way and let them know how serious they are on their acquiring of assets, so to speak, it doesn't feel bad at all. I mean, we've had a couple little throw ups here and there, little things yesterday, little things that maybe the day before, but we're fairly clear.
So, Kim, do you think that once you get your $1 bill, will that be the point when we've reached our Lincoln logs with the deep state that we're like, you can't do anything? So maybe 2 weeks until we complete Project Lincoln logs, maybe?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I think for the bigger toys, I think we should be able to finish that up in the next day or so. Okay. Bigger toys that could cause a problem. We should hopefully, God willing, be able to finish that up in the next day or so. But everything is kind of coming together at the exact right time. I can't say this enough, that our creator, I always said this is a job. I have a job and I'm just one bell, like in the whole choir of bells, or, the bell ringers. You remember those around the holiday time in church. But
I love the bell ringers. Yeah.
I know I do too. I always wondered how, it's just amazing how it all comes together perfectly. And when the creator has a plan and everybody, he's like, okay, Kim, do this today. I'm okay, I'll do this. And then a couple days later, I'm like, wow, I look really smart. I can't say that enough because I'm like, this all just came together so perfectly. I couldn't have asked for anything more. And I think all of humanity, if everybody knew, wouldn't have asked for anything more either. It's just, they're moving over here, I'm moving over there, and we're going to eventually meet at a point within the next few days. I mean, it's not that far considering how many thousands of years we've been living in this mess. We're going to come to that pinnacle point where we're both ready to then go forward as a single unit.
It's like the grand finale, the fireworks, at the end of fireworks, how they're going off, like,
yep.
That's what it is right now.
Well, and it's not just them either. It's us. It's all of you holding the light when we needed to hold the light, and tolerating the attacks, and going through planned, staged events that last 2 to 3 years. And we even survived the toilet paper crisis of 2020.
I know. It's amazing.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wiped our own butt. Remember that movie? What was it? With Adam Sandler. It's a really cute movie. Have you seen it, Sunny?
I don't know.
And his roommate had a son with a lady from Hooters. And she gets sick and she brings the son back. Okay, maybe some of you will remember it. And so he's like I think he's like 5 years old or something, the little kid. Yeah, something daddy. Big Daddy.
Big Daddy. Oh, I have heard of that. I don't think I watched that.
Oh, it's super cute. You need to watch it. But there comes a point where he comes running out and he goes, "But I wiped my own butt." He didn't say butt, but he said something else. And and we all made it.
We all made it.
Yeah, 2020. I mean, look, the last 3 years have been tough, and I know it. And I know we still have problems, and I know we still have issues, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And all of the things that I've talked about have come to fruition at exactly the right time. I wish it was my time, because it would have happened a long time ago, because I did not get in the patience line. I got in the common sense line, which has served me also. But also I have, when source, when, wait for it,
Yeah.
But when I look back at this journey, and all I've learned in the last couple of years, in the last 10 years, in the last 12 years, 11 years, there's no better way to learn something than by doing it. The amount of things that were done to this planet, to humanity, to this world. I mean, the Adam and Eve story is just one of many that we've told in the last couple of years. The truth about. It just blows my mind. I mean, dead man switch after dead man switch, and this, and pockets of time, and time release stuff, and operatives that would go back and forward in time, placing things at future critical dates when they could lose. We had to go up forward 50 years and 100 years and this to make sure all those were out of the way, as far as pockets in the hollow, because you can see the point of beginning and of the end point of something like that within the Stargate system. So we had to trace all those people too, and make sure that nothing was going to come up again in the future. So based on some information that we got. So it's been a journey. I'm glad I've been on it. I would like to start the next part of my journey as quickly as possible. Just throwing that out there, Source, just in case you're listening to this broadcast.
So, Kim, when do you write your book? That's what we all want to know. When does the Kim book come out?
I don't know.
We'll make it into a movie too, for those of you that don't like to read. It's all good.
Well, I think by that point, we'll be able to have people produce that movie. Have people that will produce the real
On United
history
Network.
on United Network. That's right.
That's right.
It's all United
It's an
Network all the
exclusive.
time. No matter which news channel you turn on, it's all United Network all the time. 24 hours a day.
Yep.
And we'll get real history, and we'll get, at that point, I'll just give someone all my notes and have them come back and ask questions. The notes are up to, and these are just bullet points. They're up to well over 500 pages. I've now exceeded, I think, War and Peace. I'm pretty sure. Hey, we rewrote War and Peace. Think about it that way.
It is, right? It's a story of War and Peace.
No Mr. Darcy in this one. We got the full on, Mr. Draco thing going on in there, but no Mr. Darcy. And we've got all kinds of stuff in there that talks about the real war for peace.
It's like a combination of, I was going to say, it's like a combination of that and Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah. And you can throw in some Lara Croft stories. I've got some of those to tell for sure. A little Mata Hari.
Indiana Jones.
We can throw some of that in there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's one big blockbuster. I can't wait for that movie to come out.
It's probably going to be a series.
I'm sure.
Yeah. It'll be bigger than Harry Potter, I'll bet you.
Yes.
But it'll be a good watch, and it'll be entertaining when it's done right. So
yeah, for sure.
So yeah, that's the World Situation Report for Wednesday, the 17th of May.
It is. Okay, you're right. I was about to say the 18th. I'm glad you said that.
Oh, good.
All right.
Hey, Sunny, it's only the 17th. You're getting bad as me.
I know, right? Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Sunny. Have a good day.